Yeah, YouTubers, Tasman here, bringing you another episode of Foundry Virtual Tabletop version 12 from the ground up. I think that's what I called it. So in our last episode, we started going over the actual Foundry interface with a very, very minimal system, which is, like I said, if you're not excited about looking at this bare bones system, it's just to help you get a greater appreciation for the hard work that the people that are developing the systems, what they actually do. And it lets us just see the very basics of Foundry before we get into modules and actual other systems. First thing I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to do what I like to do every time I get on Foundry, is go ahead and click update on our game systems and modules. Right now, you'll probably only have one module if you're following along, which is the Koboldworks Inspector, I think is what it was called. I guess we'll find out. So it looks like all our systems are updated, and this one might take a minute just because there is a lot of systems in here. But like I said, the only one you might have would be the Koboldworks one, which looks like there's a lot of updates, which is actually really good news. Of all the different modules I have, it does look like this number is going down slowly, which I'm very happy. That means the one I'm really waiting for hasn't gone down though. But anyway, yeah, so you should have Koboldworks. Where is it? LMNOPQ. There it is. Koboldworks Data Inspector. So I'm trying to remember everything that I did. I think I went very basically over the main interface that we see. Let's just jump in here and go to our Tasman. I did add the password. All right. So we've gone over just kind of what everything is on the interface of just the simple world building system. We can't really do anything with this because we don't have what they call scenes or a map or an actual thing. And I did talk about how we have our scene bar up here, which also isn't there because we don't have one yet. So I did mention that this is where all your chats happen, under these little two chat bubbles. You can use special things, like we can actually do /R for roll, or I believe you can actually type roll. It's easier for me to type /R instead of the word roll. And then you could put in any dice. It doesn't have to be a valid dice. We could say a 1d17, and it will roll the value of a 1d17. And if we want to actually see what that value was, like if we had multiple dice, like let's say we did 1d, I have to /R, and let's say 1d, let's do a 1d17 and also a 1d, or maybe 2d. Let's do 2d 7. Sure, why not? Because we can. So if we do that, you'll see we got 15 total. But let's say you wanted to know more specifically what the actual values on the dice were. All you have to do is click on the formula here, and you can see on the D17, we rolled a 12. On the 2D7, we rolled a 1, and we rolled a 2. Pretty low there. So you can actually just click those anytime, and it will give you the actual values of what you rolled. Then we can always click the clear chat log down here to clear everything. We also have the save export the chat log. So if you have a big chat log, you can actually export it, and for your, I guess, a souvenir or something. We have our types of roles. So in the virtual tabletop world, you actually have multiple types of roles. You actually have the ability to do a blind roll, which is really nice, because what that does is it makes it so only the GM sees the value. The person's still doing the actual thing for the roll, but the GM only gets to see it. Therefore, they can limit metagaming. So, you know, if a person says they're doing a perception check and you say, okay, give me a perception check, and they roll a blind, you can give them information, you know, not necessarily saying you see nothing. You can, you know, kind of spice it up a little bit, but basically tell them they see nothing. And that way other people don't know that they messed up that roll. So there's no thing, oh, well, they got a 2, so I'm going to do that too. I'm going to do a perception check. So obviously the blind roll is really good because it helps get rid of metagaming. You should be able to see these. A lot of things that people record on, you can't actually see the drop downs, but I think because I'm using it's a screen grabber, you should be able to see these. So as you can see, there's a public roll, which is the default. That's a roll that goes out and everybody gets to see it. You have the private GM roll, where, why am I drawing a blank on all the definitions of these? Private GM role is, oh, actually I do know. So a private GM role is, actually I'm thinking wrong. The blind GM role, I think the private GM role, if I remember right, the roller and the GM gets to see the value. I'm gonna open up and search that really quick. We're gonna have a Firefox there. Let's see, role types. Just because I want to get this right, and I can't believe I always Foundry VTT. All right, so basic dice. I think this is what I want. I just want to make sure I'm giving you the right info. To be honest, I've actually recorded this now 6 times, and each time I forget something. So I just got to get this one done. Even though I messed up this part. So here we go. So the public role obviously is rolled public. GM role is, I believe that's this one, private GM role. Roles of this type are visible to the player that rolled and any game master users. So I was right. Then we have the blind role. The blind GM role is where the player doesn't get to see what they rolled. And the self roll is a private die roll, which is only visible to the user who rolled it. So if you're rolling something and you're like, you know, I just want to do a test roll or whatever, I don't want the GM to see it, you can do a self roll. And so those are the 4 types of rolls we have here. There are various other things that you can actually do with the basic chat. We will be covering more of those later, but the most common thing you might be doing is actually, you know, doing a custom roll. And like I said, where we did our value here, which is, you know, 1d7 plus 2d7, 1d17 plus 2d7, you can also, you know, say, okay, I'm doing a 1d2, I'm doing an initiative roll, right? So we could do 1d20 like so, and let's say my dex is +3, so we could just do 1d20 plus 3. You can see here we actually rolled pretty good. 18 plus 3 gives us 21. Other things you can do is, let's say I'm doing an advantage roll, I can do 1d20, and then I can say keep high, KH for keep high. You can also say drop low, DL. You could say keep low, KL, which is kind of the same thing as drop high. Or you could also drop high, which would be keeping the old one. I usually say keep high, keep low, KH or KL. So if I say KH1, it's going to keep one of the dice. So if I roll that, you can see that we rolled, I actually did that wrong. 1D, oh, I did 1D. Silly me, I need 2D20. I think I probably confused the system there. Like, why are you saying keep highest first die? Because that's the only die we have. So here you can say we have 2D20, keep high 1. And now you can see, so we rolled an 18 and a 1. It's going to keep the 18. If we didn't have the keep high, it would simply add those together. So you either want keep high or keep low. Or if you really like drop low, drop high. That seems more confusing. There's lots and lots of other formulas that you can do. I'm not going to go over all of them because that's kind of outside the scope of what I want to accomplish here. But you can always go to foundryvtt.com and go look up under their articles. They have basic dice, advanced dice, and it will actually be able to tell you more. You can actually get these same type of things. So the default, like I said, is public. If I really wanted, I think it's easy enough just to do the drop down, but you can actually do, for example, the slash roll is a public roll. If I did slash GMR, that would be the game master roll, right? If I wanted to do a blind roll, I could do BR, I could do B roll, or I could do blind roll. So we could do BR for blind roll, and the last one is self roll, which would be SR or the word self roll, one word. So that's that. That's actually a lot more time than I wanted to spend on this part. So let's continue on. The next one over is our combat tracker. You can actually have multiple encounters. Right now I don't think it's going to work because we don't have a scene and we don't have combatants or anything like that. We will definitely go over that more, but you can have more than one encounter and, you know, have them running here. There's a little cog here to look at the settings. Because we don't actually have any combats in here, we don't have any settings. The next one is scenes. We're going to go ahead and create just a really basic scene. I don't even know that I have a map necessarily. I might have a map we could throw in. But we're going to go ahead and we can, with most of your things, you can create a folder to help be organized. And then, of course, you can actually create the actual item. So let's say we were running Abomination Vaults and we were doing it all ourselves. We could actually come in here, create a folder called Abomination Vaults, and then create our first layer of the dungeon and call it, you know, level 1 or something like that. And then we could have our level 2, level 3, level 4, however we want to do it. So we're not going to do a folder. With what we're doing here, we don't need that. So we're just going to go ahead and create a scene. We're just going to call this test for our test scene and create new. So what will pop up when we do that is our little scene configuration. So this first thing is obviously name of the scene. So test right there. It shows, is it show up in the navigation, which means it's kind of active. And right now it's set to GM only, which means this scene can only be viewed when the GM activates it and puts people on it. Otherwise, they can't see it. If I set it to all players, then it would always be available and it would be listed up here with multiple scenes, and they can actually bounce between them if they want. Default is definitely GM only. We also have the navigation name. So let's say this is Tiamat's lair from D&D, you know, the 5-headed dragon. If I didn't want the people to see that, but I needed that scene name, I could call it test here, but down here I could actually give it the name that's going to show up as the name that they see in navigation. So I could say I'm going to say Soupy, SPOOK, Spooky Cave, right? And when I hit save changes, you'll see here now it's called Spooky Cave, even though the scene's called that. So this is what the players will see. We can have this is where I'm not sure I actually have a background image, but we'll check. I don't remember if I uploaded anything. So background image, you can type it in if you know the path. The path is relevant to your data directory. So I remember that I said I like to create assets, so that means there would probably be a assets. We can also click on browse files, which will give us our user data or the core data. User data will go to that directory starting with data and everything in it. So there you can see I have my assets. Core data will actually go to more the system itself. So we go into assets here. Oh, I might actually have maps. So we're going to, it looks like, yeah, actually I have a decent one here. So we're going to do, I believe this one as the first one we're going to do. So we're going to choose the rooftop stash grid. I'm hoping this is right. And now if I hit save changes, you'll see that we have this nice map here with, you know, it's already gridded for us. I don't think it follows the actual grid of our system, but we can fix that. You'll notice that right now these are considered our grid. So if we actually put a player on here, it would be a quarter of this square. But we can, like I said, we can fix that. But this is our map. Now, if we wanted, we can also, I'm going to right click on this, go to configure to get back into configuration. You can also click on it, but there are modules that will actually make this load it so you view it instead. But the default with just base Foundry will actually load configuration just by clicking it. I'm not used to that. So the other thing we can do, if I'm right, we can do it on this one, is you have a foreground image. This might not work like I'm thinking it will, but we're going to see what this one is. So we're going to go ahead. This is the rooftop stash roofs grid 1722, and you can see it's at 200 ppi. So pixels per inch. So I think this is going to make everything so it has roofs on it. Now you might have seen videos where, you know, oh, if I put a token on here and I go under it, it actually goes away. That's not what this is. This is a foreground layer. So the entire thing is just the roofs. So if I wanted to have my players, you know, come into this thing, if I turned this off, they would see inside all the buildings. If I set up tiles as overhead roof tiles and I did each one of these, then I could put them wherever. Then if a tile went under, a token went underneath it, it could disappear. But as this is, if a token goes inside this room, it's between the base layer, the canvas layer, and the actual overhead layer. So in this case, this would not be very good for us to have. So we're just going to come in here and delete that. And you'll see it actually started with assets. We don't need that data, even though that's the base directory. The next thing is the background colors. You can see we have the background color of our scene, which is this light gray color. We can change that if we want. I never do. And we can also see what the actual elevation of the foreground is. So that's the elevation of these roofs right here. So I can actually, let's just create a really bad actor real quick. Oh, I have to give it a name. We'll call this tester. So we have a real quick actor. We're not going to do anything with it. But what I want to show you is if I have my token, did I drag it out? Why is it not dragging out? I'm not sure why it's not dragging out. Is it? Is that a... Oh, we just dragged out a bunch of them. Apparently it is underneath... I think I got rid of them all. Apparently it is underneath the base. So if we come here, I'm going to put it here and just show you. And I'm going to have to look at what is actually going on. But you'll see its elevation is at 0. If I change it to 20, now it's above everything. So you can see it's above the roof because it's 20, and that was the default elevation. If I change it by right clicking here and say 10 and go in, now it's actually underneath everything. I wonder if this is actually got the ground as well. I bet you that's what it is. I bet you if I go look at that, go back into the scene real quick, that this is not a good foreground image. So if we go here, let's go ahead and change our view type to larger. Yeah, see, we're actually getting a repeat of the ground, which is why it's doing that. So what it's actually doing is it has this map at the bottom, and this map is 20 levels up, I guess. I don't know. And when we're putting our token on there at level 0 through 19, it's between these two. But we can't see this one because this is a full map. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. because it's a terrible one. Usually your foreground map will just be the roofs of the area and not kind of a replica of the whole thing. So now you can see that we are 10 feet up. We're still visible. Even if we go to 0, we should still be visible. That's what was going on. So there you go. We'll go ahead and delete that for now. Let's go back into our scene now. So that's what that's talking about. Foreground elevation is whatever the elevation compared to the rest of the world. Everything kind of has its own elevation. That's the default. The other thing we have here is our initial view. So when we come into this map, let's say we wanted it to focus on this building right here. What we want to do is basically get it how we want it in our scene, and then we click this little button and it will fill in the values saying it's at this X value, this Y value, and this is the zoom value. So now when anyone is drawn to this scene, this is the default view that they'll see. Basically everything we see here, unless their resolution's way different, they might see a little more, a little less. So that is the basics. Next is the grid. So as I was saying, this scene, if you look really close here, you can see that it has this grid that is basically double what our actual grid is. So what we can do, as we saw, it said it was 200 ppi, right? 200 pixels per inch. So if we change our grid here, we can change this to 200. Now if we move off of it, you'll see, I probably have to hit save changes. There you go. Now you can see our grid is actually right on with it, which is okay, but a lot of times these grids are just too big. I probably would actually prefer it the other one. Let's go back in there and I'll show you some other things we can do. So the first one here is the grid type. What we can do here is if we click it, we can actually see the grid as we're doing it. So if I say 100 here, and then I move off that window, it will update. So this is what it was, and this is probably actually what I would prefer. We can also change the grid type. So we have square, we have gridless, we have hexagonal row where it's even. So the first row's the odds and then the even, and then we have the columns being odd and even. Hopefully you know about that stuff. If we're drawing this grid and it's off, let's just say it was off by 10, you can actually nudge it. So here you can see, oh, actually, I didn't know you could move the mouse wheel in there. Interesting. So we can actually zoom in and see that the grid is actually off. So we can play with it and try and get the grid to be exact. The only thing is if your grid isn't actual squares because you downloaded a map and someone changed the resolution, they might not line up, or they line up here but further down the map they actually don't. So if we were to come in here, we could then set our offset and get it as lined up as we can do. That's cool. I wonder if that's new. And then once we've got everything set, we can do that, and that will actually populate the previous window with the information we got. Here you can see the scene dimensions is automatically populated for you. The scene dimension is 3400 pixels by 4400. We can change that by linking it so that if I change this one, it automatically changes that one. There's also the padding of your grid. Couldn't think for a second. And then there's the offset of the background pixels, right? Then down here we have a little more stuff with our grid scale. Right now we're saying 1 square is 5 feet. If I hit save, you'll see did we get our other one back? I don't think we did because I didn't change it. Let's go ahead and change it. Actually, it looks like it changed the map. Oh, no, we're good. Because this is 1 grid. These are 2. So right now it's set so when I move a token on it, it knows that one space is 5 feet. If you want to change that, you can change it here. You can change the unit of measurement from feet to meters or whatever. This is just an identifier. I don't think it actually does anything. We can also say what kind of grid we want and the color of the grid. So right now we have solid lines. We have options of doing dashed lines, which are teeny little dashes there. We can also say the thickness. Let's say we want it 5 thick. Usually when you're changing these, if you just go into another field, it will actually update. So now you can see those are 5 thick. We could say we want dotted lines, so now they're circular instead of squares. We could say we want square points, so you can see just where they intersect is where it's going to show you it. We have diamond points, kind of the same, but now we got diamonds. And then we have round points where it's going to do the same, but with circles. I rarely touch any of that. I just usually leave it on the solid lines. And I don't change that at all. I just leave that there. We can also change the color of the grid. So if we have a map that has actually got lots of this color gray, we can actually come in. Actually, this is black. But let's say we wanted something stands out a little bit more. Might make it look a little bad, but we'll just play with it. So if I do that and move it, now you can see we have kind of this bluish grid, which when we come down here doesn't necessarily look the greatest, but it's not terrible. But it does make it so you can actually see our little pattern a little better, although you can't really see that one very good because it's in that brown crack. And then there's the opacity, is, you know, how transparent that is. If we wanted to really stand out like laser lines, we do that. Next thing we have is the lighting. So this is all the lighting for the scene. This isn't talking about individual lights. This is the overall light for the whole scene. We also have an option here for the fog of war image. If you're playing with the fog of war, you can actually have it so that, you know, there's an image on top of it. As you uncover it, it actually uncovers, which is the fog of exploration. So you can turn that on and off. Token vision means that token vision is needed here. So if I have a token that doesn't have any special sight, it won't be able to see on the scene once it's dark. If it's day, everything can see usually. This will be the color of the fog of war when it's unexplored. This is the fog of war when it's explored, but the token is not in the current viewing area. We have global illumination. If we want to light the entire map, we can do the global illumination just by clicking that guy. This is the threshold. This is when global illumination turns off. So if we change, and this is from 0 to 1, let's say we wanted evening to be when it turns off, we could actually come in here and, you know, this would be early morning, this is midnight, or maybe this is noon and this is midnight, something like that. We could choose somewhere in between and say when this happens, I want it to be considered requiring that it doesn't have the global illumination. Darkness level is when the darkness level is, it's going to require you to have whatever sights. And then we can also lock the darkness level so that it can't be changed on the map. The final tab we have here is the ambiance tab, or the ambience. So we have two options in here. We have basic and we have the environmental lighting. So under basic, we can link our map so it's actually to a journal entry. We haven't gone over those yet, and a specific page of a journal entry. We can also, if we've set up a music playlist or something, we can have when this scene goes active to play said playlist, or even play a single song from a playlist, you know, as a sound. We also have various weather effects, not a ton of them, but we do have like autumn leaves. So we click that and hit save, you'll actually see that we have these nice little autumn leaves just kind of dancing around. We also have rain, rainstorm, fog, snow, and blizzard. So, you know, we can make it look like it's raining on our scene. And then we can also use regions to make it so it's not snowing, raining, or whatever inside a building, which kind of just gives that bit more of a realism. So we're going to set it to nothing at the moment. And, oh, we need to do these guys. So this is the different information about the lighting. When we went in lighting here, and it didn't give us a lot of information on the actual how the lighting is done. That's under the ambiance, under environmental lighting. So you can change the luminosity for the whole thing, the saturation. You can actually see, we can set it so super saturated or not saturated. Go back to 0 here. Go to 0. Luminosity, shadows, are they accented? You know, are we going to make them really dark? We can do the same thing with the hue. You know, is it going to be something special? Then we can actually come in here and say this is the actual hue. So this is where you might be able to make it look like, you know, this is underwater. Well, it's raining or snowing underwater, but you can make it look like the frozen tundra or something like that, just by playing with these things to make it look like, oh, it's just freezing cold here, right? So that is your hue and your hue intensity. We can also blend the ambiance, which is kind of blending everything together. Then we have the dark stuff. So the difference between when it's base or day, and then this is what happens at night when it turns nighttime. So that's kind of in a nutshell our scenes. Ooh, I left the blue. I don't like that. I think we're going to end it here because we're already at 31 minutes and I want to keep these a little shorter. Let's go ahead and put you back to black. Oh, I guess you couldn't really see what I was doing over there because it went off screen. All right, so there we go. I guess this is fine. We can leave it at that's fine. Yeah, so this is where we're going to leave it. Hopefully you enjoyed this stuff. If you have any questions, you know, feel free to leave comments, join my Discord and leave comments there and I can answer them. I'm really wondering how in depth I need to go on this stuff. Do we just want to kind of cruise through the simple world building? Because really no one is going to be necessarily playing in this, an actual campaign game or something. But I want to just, like I said, I want to show you what your system developers are really doing. And that shines the most in when we get to our actors, when we do items, mostly those two, because those are the big, huge things. But anyway, I think we're going to end it here. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below. Aside from that, comment, like, and subscribe. Click that little notification bell. Tell other people about my channel. Join my Discord. And that is it, my friends. Until next time, I'll be seeing you later. Bye.